Well, there's definitely some shockers in this one. This banner is shaping up to potentially be another either very good banner for some of you or big bait. Let's talk about it.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here bringing another Fire Emblem Heroes video. This video is going to talk about, well, my impressions and thoughts on the upcoming Legendary Mythic banner. I'm not really sure what to call this. Like, we'll just go with Mythic banner because we thought it was a Mythic banner. And there's a lot to talk about here. Mostly surprises and potentially what it could mean for book 6. So I'm just going to give my thoughts and initial impressions. Of course, watch the video. A kind of initial should you pull, kind of like my thoughts on it, but I will make a more detailed should you pull video, of course, with the community voting. So on the community tab on the channel, go check that out and vote if you want to, and also the Patreon for more of a like in-depth discussion on this sort of stuff. So yeah, before we jump into this, smash the like button and sub. Helps out the channel, and that means I'll keep asking every time. But as long as you keep doing it, I'm still here. So yeah, what a doozy. Okay, this banner, before we even like play it, has a legendary and a mythic, so it actually does end up changing quite a bit, I would say. And keep in mind that this is the last banner before book 6, so I would qualify it as about as big of a beta as it can be, because usually on the turn of a new book, new mechanics or modes or something like that happens, and then we might burn all our orbs and not be ready for that. So it's like the most important thing to take away from this whole video if you were to take something away from it. Be careful, probably don't day one summon, maybe wait for my analysis on both Eitri and Thorr, where I feel they rank up against the other mythics and whatnot, and legendaries, I guess, of their respective seasons, and maybe get a full picture that way before you make any irrational decisions. Either way, let's jump into this this banner, like what it has, and why it could potentially be really important. As we get through the initial stages of shock, I guess, I will.
I am Eitri.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so I was on the idea that we were just not gonna have a fire legendary for a while, but here we are. So new fire legendary in the form of Eitri, and not a mythic. Would have been, I was expecting a mythic, a new, like we do get one, but not of this particular nature. Neither legendary, neither Astra, as we'll see with Thorr. Green flyer though for fire season might not be the best, considering what the other fire legendaries currently are, in the form of like legendary Lilina, legendary Marth getting buffed a lot. Legendary Roy actually next year should get a remix, so I don't feel confident in where Eitri would stand in the long term, but going based on her kit, as we'll see in a moment, it doesn't seem too bad. I'd say that this probably makes like Celica's matchup harder, if anything. Okay, so we'll talk about the weapon first. It seems to be fairly identical to what she was using in the story chapters, which is a 2-movement set canto with the limitation of turns 1 to 4. That's the part that, in my opinion, kind of sucks. That's what you kind of don't want. She has 2 conditions for her secondary effect, which is just an initiation or just not adjacent to allies, which actually is not too good in Arena, by the way. This feels like it's more of an AR thing, but to be player phasing or solo in Arena isn't actually that desirable. You would ideally want your group of units to all be like using spurs and drives and stuff like that, that would make them give more buffs and make their matchups a bit better. So I'm not a huge fan of that one. However, she does have Canto, it's 2-turn, and that's really good. But the 4-turn restriction is kind of bad because you actually want to be like kiting or avoiding combat quite a bit. So, and it's only 2 move Canto as opposed to like 3 or like that, you know, some of the other ones, the Regan and Oder, for example, have, which is way better. So it's a guaranteed follow-up and attack res -6 on the foe, which is pretty good. I'm assuming she's going to be like dumping her speed stat, as there's no indication that she's going to be getting a lot of speed here, other than her preference B, which we'll talk about in a moment. But generally speaking, it seems like she'll be bulky, hit hard, and Kanto with some mobility. Kanto and mobility is good, but I wouldn't necessarily put her into like some of the best fire legendary category, especially with some of the competition she already has. I'd say her only like favorable matchup is probably something like Celica, and I mean she'll probably win against most of them, but it's not going to be like easy clap, you know. Anyways, preference B skill. It's pretty similar to what Ice Mirror is, if I was to literally just like give it a single name, but it has a condition of foe being at 50%. That's whatever, you'll probably always get that. Debuff to all four stats on the enemy, and then it has the first attack during combat reduces by 30%, and any damage absorbed gets hit back. So it's pretty much Ice Mirror 1. But the thing is, if you lower the enemy attack and they're hitting you like not that hard, then technically you're not getting like that much value out of that. I would appreciate the fact that it's just like extra mitigation. And honestly, with with flyer B skills, there's not that many good ones. Like it's just that or trace pretty much. So it's a solid place to be. Like it's a solid B skill. And also because it is a preference B skill, it does mean she's going to score significantly higher than than what we had before, which is like Legendary Edelgard. Like Legendary Edelgard, I believe was like 185. So Eitri here could very well end up, I believe, at 195 or 190. Just correct me in comments. I can't remember at the top of my head right now, but she will score pretty well. At least, like, that matters. I don't know how to feel about her yet. I'd like to see her stat spread. And I'd like to review, you know, how the other fire legendaries might likely perform against her. One cool thing about the damage reduction, though, is definitely, like, archers, even with effective damage, may not kill her. So that's pretty cool. Anyways, here's our second release, which is Mythic. I mean, this does all kind of make sense if you look back with Triandra and Freya last year. So they really want to like stack a color, release new stuff, potentially popular ones, and definitely suck out all the orbs of all the players before the new book. Thorr seems like fits that candidacy pretty well. It's also Astra Mythic, which I feel is a bit of an odd choice. That's like three Astra Mythics in a year, actually. So that's a lot. And if you consider like Dark still only has one, which is not. So yeah, Green Axe Flyer though. So Astra didn't have a green unit, did not have one, and Light had Freya. What this means is, well, she at least would give you some color coverage. But, oh boy, okay, some good stuff here. So her weapon is fairly the same thing. Like it's pretty much the same thing as what she had in the Tempest Trials. I don't think there's any changes. It's got that armor effectiveness. It's auto double as long as she is above 25% HP. So it's pretty easy condition. Some extra attack, minus attack, debuff on the foe. So it's pretty nice. Now, here's where things get interesting. It's very, very simple, like weapon, honestly. It's slaying as well. The C skill, the preference C skill, is actually what defines Thorr here, and that is that it's literally special acceleration for herself and all her allies. That is crazy good, because you can now officially not have to rely on stuff like heavy blades or flashing blades. And that like really opens up a lot of stuff. Like you can do more quick impulse or infantry pulses, like times pulses, just combining this nature of just special acceleration without using the blades and relying on Thorr to do that. Now, since she's effectively going to have some really high attack stat, she has an armor slaying weapon, and can run Wings of Mercy. So you'd want someone like Regan to like initiate and potentially go under half, and then get into a position nicely either with Kanto or Gale Force and set up Thorr to come in. And then any other follow-ups after that get special acceleration, which will make her really good in those type of teams. But that's not the only way to use her. You could actually just have her basically replace Lucina, like Lancina. Like, it's simple as that, really. You can now have a Mythic who's very supportive in nature. I really like the design of Thorr here. I think that preference C skill is pretty simple, but pretty effective for diverse strategies. So as an Astro Mythic, I do think she, in my opinion, will rank pretty highly as a good one. And considering she's like a 2-move infantry, 2-move flyer, melee flyer, like there's a certain other character with 2 swords, if you know what I'm talking about, that doesn't really do as much. And it's nice to actually see that the design of this one is way better. I also think she's quite popular and likely to share with Ninjoran in Hero Rises. Like, I could actually very well see Thorr and like Ninjoran now sharing potentially in if we have another one, upcoming Hero Rises. I wouldn't bank on that, but I could see that happening, and maybe that's a consideration for you guys, for either Ninjoran people who might be saving or potentially going for it, or maybe just like Thorr, and maybe you could see if that happens. Also, Spider-Man meme for Thorr in Mjolnir Strike. So if you have Thorr and you want to score well in Mjolnir Strike, then then technically that's a thing too. You can bring Thorr and fight yourself. Anyways guys, so this banner, definitely green is like for new players. If you're a new player and you want to make some progression, you still want a lot of orbs. Like, I'd still say like 1,000 orbs at the very minimum to commit to like these type of banners. Don't go in here with like a couple hundred and expect to get much out of it. But if you have like 1,000 orbs saved, and especially if you're a new player or you don't have a lot of merges on your mythics and you want to make some progression in AR and in fire season for arena, green is solid. We rarely get this type of value. Like, I feel it's like once or twice a year where we get something really good like this. So I would recommend for new players on green for sure. However, make sure you do that at least, like, this banner lasts almost 2 weeks. So I would at least wait to see what new banners and what Book 6 brings to the table, just in case they have some system, mechanical, or scoring changes that completely, like, not completely, but could invalidate those modes and these mythics and legendaries. So do a little bit of waiting, then the commitment could be pretty good in green, especially for newer players. Light mythics, astro mythics, light merges, astro merges, and a fire season, all pretty solid characters, all pretty recent. Okay, and for the other colors, honestly, it's like another one of those, like, if you have these characters, then probably they're good for you, which is going to be starting with red. So Plumeria is definitely one of the best mythics you can get for Astra, and it still will be, even with something like Thorr in the game. Legendary Sigurd is extremely powerful, potentially as a one-off if you wanted him for AR defense. I could see that. But beyond that, he's not really going to get you too much. If he's a core wind, then it's going to be really good for you. And finally, Moose Spellshare is, again, it feels like it's pulling a defense mythic because he has ARD defense res 4, so that's pretty good to throw onto quite a few characters on defense if you wanted to improve your defense. And Dragon Wall is pretty good for a lot of dragons. So red is solid, but it still depends mostly on who or what would want those, what kind of players. Finally, with blue and colorless, it's going to be far more specific. So legendary fans, I mean, Dimitri fans, you probably will enjoy blue, I guess. But also there is, like, not is there. So I guess that ruins it for Dimitri fans. But generally speaking, blue is not that great unless you really want those characters. And colorless is, again, pretty specific to people who may want a really work on a wind legendary core between Corrin and Micaiah there. And Brammy is, he's okay, I guess. He's okay. It's not great, but he's not okay. He's just okay. Anyways, guys, that basically covers my initial impressions, reactions, thoughts on this Legendary Mythic banner. As always, I'd suggest just waiting because this one will last a while and see what book 6 brings. I will do my Shouju poll video as soon as I see some stats on those two and give them an analysis. Plus, I want to get the feedback that you guys provide, so feel free to let me in the comments know, in the community section, poll, and whatnot. Alright guys, love you all, and I will see you in the next one soon. Smash the like button, sub, and consider the Patreon if you enjoy what I do and you want to support the content. Peace.
It's over.